Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to or watching the Powercast. And we are back to cover Power Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2, Episode 6. And the episode is called What's Free. I hope everyone, had a happy holiday and a happy new year and everything like that. How are you doing, Richard Bailey Jr.? Did you have a good one?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Gary. I have a little bit of a sinus issue right now, but I'm okay. Happy to start a new year. I hope everyone had a happy new year and definitely stay safe because there's a lot of things going on right now with these variants. So be careful.
Oh yeah. There were definitely a lot of scares and things like that. It wasn't even just like the COVID. There's a lot of like flus and infections in general going around. So I hope everyone's feeling okay. I hope all of our listeners are well and and not in bad shape. And how about you, Dana? How are you feeling? And how was your holiday?
My holiday was good. I ate and went to sleep, so it was very successful. I'm happy to talk about power and to rejoin everyone once again.
Awesome. That's Dana Abercrombie right there. Good to have you back. So yeah, we are all back to cover Power. It was a 2 week break. I know a lot of people, they were missing the show. Like we got loads of comments on the last episode, like all through the holiday and everything. So we know, you guys were missing Power just as much as we were. And we are very excited to now be back to talk about the next episode and what an episode it was. This is crazy. Like so much happened in episode 6, and we're gonna talk about some of our takeaways here first, and then we'll get to our questions segment in which we're gonna discuss the episode in more depth. I just want to remind everyone, if you enjoy listening to this show, please consider hitting the like button. Please also consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon so you get notified when there is a new episode. And yeah, we are on Spotify, we are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon, anywhere you could think to get podcasts. The show is there also. So definitely, check out those platforms as well if you're more of an audio listener. But we're going to get right ahead into Mr. Richard Bailey Jr.'s takeaways from this episode now. So, Richard, let us know your thoughts on episode 6, What's Free of Power Book 2 Ghost.
Well, let me start off by saying that my client, Tariq St. Patrick, is free for right now. We'll see. But let me start by saying, yeah, this was a great episode. I mean, as you alluded to, and as Dana mentioned before we started recording, there's a lot of detail in this episode from start to finish. So I have we'll obviously get into a lot more discussions about some of the questions, but I have 3 takeaways that I'll focus on. Okay, first and foremost, we know that Lorenzo has returned, and this was the episode where you got to see him take full control. You saw him establish that Drew is actually the person who he wants to take over for him. And they have this whole dynamic of Drew and Kane back and forth because, Kane was doing his thing. And of course, you could see that he's trying to control his father, saying that he has the connect, but he doesn't want to give him the connect. And then, of course, we did see at the end of the episode that Mecca sent him a text saying that he wants to meet Lorenzo. So finally, I look forward to seeing how that interaction will go down in the next episode. But just when you saw Lorenzo come back into the picture and you see how much power and control he has over what's happening with the family dynamic, I think that was something that we needed to see. We also finally learned that he actually has been locked up for 10 years. So that definitely explains why Monet was feeling uneasy about him returning. That, and of course, what she has going on with Mecca right now. So I thought it was great to see that. I thought it was great to see that he sees bigger things in Drew's future, and of course, but you do see that Drew is going to continue to have these issues with whether or not he wants to pursue his relationship with Everett or he wants to pursue this other lifestyle entirely. because you saw in this episode that Lorenzo asked him to tell the guy they are intending to take out, and I believe he already had plans with Everett that he had to cancel because of that. So I'm very curious to see how that situation is going to escalate. We do know that Lorenzo is accepting of his son. He knows that his son likes other guys. That was made clear because I felt like we didn't really know any of that information because we never saw those two characters interact until this episode. So yeah, I thought they answered a lot of questions. And the other two quick points I will mention about Lorenzo, we saw his dynamic with Diana, the fact that he is definitely set on, giving her an education because that's what she wanted. Of course, she didn't get everything that she wanted because she wants to be up there with Tariq, not at the other school that they have her going to. So we'll see how that plays out. She was a little disappointed to hear that news. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. And finally, of course, obviously he doesn't suspect what's happening with Monet yet, but clearly, being challenged by Kane as far as now that Kane figures that he should be the one who should be the right-hand man next to him, but he's still fighting for his son Drew to be the one that takes over. It leaves a lot of questions as to how this is going to turn out. So I look forward to seeing that. And of course, Drew calling the shots, suggesting to Lorenzo, you need to take out this guy because he is a threat. You're starting to see Drew become the character that we thought that he would eventually become. But again, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to continue to have struggles with trying to maintain the relationship that he has with Everett as well. So we'll see what happens. But definitely a great episode to really give us the full picture of Lorenzo as a character and how he impacts the entire family. So excellent job.
Awesome. Yeah. Great takeaways. And my a lot of my takeaways kind of mirror yours too. So
hold on.
I'm gonna go. Oh, go ahead.
I actually had two more.
Oh, I thought, okay, my bad.
Yeah, Lorenzo was one of the takeaways.
Right.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
So the other takeaway is I like what they did with Tariq in this episode. I know a lot of people thought that Tariq was going to be locked up for a long time, and as we had said on this show, Tariq is the main character of the show still, so there's no way he's going to be locked up for a long time. I will admit I was surprised to see him get out the same episode, but it made sense and how he pivoted right after that because of course you see, he finally had a conversation with Braden. They had their back and forth, and I believe now there is going to be trust and loyalty between them. He cut off his relationship with Lauren, which I feel is going to have some very negative side effects for Lauren. We'll see how that pans out. But also, which I thought was interesting, is he got back with Effie in this episode. Now, Effie, obviously, they have this business relationship working together. But now, I don't know how that's going to pan out because, I feel like if Lauren or Diana see him with Effie, they're going to take that a certain type of way. So we'll see how that escalates over time. But I really like how they had Tariq pivot in this episode. And I thought it was just a very well done job for the writers to end the previous episode with Tariq getting that controversial letter from his father. And then at the end of this episode, he burns that letter. So that's great. I still don't understand all the hate for Ghost, but very well done to continue that narrative of how much resentment he has. So that's a good job. And the final takeaway that I do have for this episode is now we have this whole situation of Lauren and Carrie going back and forth, which I thought was very interesting because, Carrie, she worked so hard to make sure that Tariq went down for this. But you saw in this episode that it is going to have consequences because, she tried to continue to have a class after all this went down and nobody wanted to talk about anything having to do with the schoolwork. They want to talk about what happened with Tariq. So, and you saw that Tate got involved and helped Tariq to get out, which again, he is a man of influence, which again, they said that word in this episode, influence.
Yeah.
Yes. To remind you that
with great emphasis.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, to remind you that his show was coming. So that was awesome. But yeah, but yeah, I'm curious to see how this situation is going to turn out, because now that Lauren knows that pretty much, Carrie is sleeping around with Zeke, that cannot be good information. And once she shares that information with whoever, that could mean the end of Carrie's job. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to turn out. But overall, as I said, excellent episode. It makes me very curious to see what happens next week, and the writers did a great job. That's all I have to say about the takeaways.
Okay, cool. So yeah, sorry to cut in there. I thought that was like everything you were
Oh no,
gonna
you're
say,
good. You're good.
but yeah, yeah, even more stuff there that I'm gonna mention as well in my takeaways. But yeah, I think I'll let Dana go next. If you want to go ahead, Dana.
Okay, well, basically, starting off with the lesson of the day. Well, basically, we know the whole episode was called "What Is Free," and it touched upon, what is freedom? Basically, an illusion, and we have that Lorenzo is technically now free, and we also follow that Tariq is also free as well, but everything that how you thought it would be is much different. Lorenzo comes back and he learns about the plan that Monet had. Remember, he was gone for 10 years, and the plan was essentially to have Zeke be the main basketball star, get drafted, go to the NBA, and the entire family would basically live off of Zeke. They would take their roles and their positions. I think Diana was supposed to do the books, and everyone would be like whatever team that he needed in order to support him while he supported them financially. And it was made very clear that, hey, you wasn't a part of this team. It was very interesting that it was Lorenzo went to Drew right away to find out what the plan was and how they was cutting him out. And it was really interesting. I thought that Lorenzo would be mad at Monet, and they would have this huge scene where they're throwing things at each other kind of fight, but it wasn't. Lorenzo seems to be a guy who knows how to play everything really close to the vest. He is someone who is not very explosive. He doesn't really show his emotion, what he's thinking and everything, which is really interesting because if you look at Drew, that's kind of the same way how Drew takes things. He's a very kind of quiet person. There are things that are going on, but he is not the one who is the explosive one, which is going to be, what is it? Not Zeke, Kane. So really interesting that they have those kind of dynamics set up. And what was also interesting was the family dynamic as well. I think right in when the episode started, there were so many things that were going on at once that kind of told you where the battle lines within the family is going to be drawn. Right away, you have Monet. She comes in and there's a nice huge party for Lorenzo. And you kind of see that Lorenzo is kind of sided with Diana. Diana is the one who got him out. He, instead of not saying, "Hey, what about your mother? Why didn't she kind of help me?" He dismisses, the fact that, the mom really didn't want him to come out. Oh, wasn't mom looking a little weird? No, I'm not gonna. Nope. We're gonna still be that unit. So I really like the fact that Lorenzo is not trying to come in and break up the family, but he is taking control of the family. But the thing is, he doesn't know that the dynamics have shifted. And it's really easy to say it's your time now to retire, but Monet's been doing this for 10 years without him, and the kids are so involved for 10 years without him that they can't just drop things once daddy comes home. And that's going to be a really interesting dynamic, and it goes into what is free and what is an illusion of freedom. Lorenzo thinks that he is the head of the table, but if you look at it, we have Diana and Lorenzo are on one team. You have what is it? Lorenzo and Drew on another team. Then you have Kane and Monet on another team trying to undercut what Lorenzo and Drew are doing. So it's going to be really something to see how everyone is going to cut into another one. And then on top of that, we have now Mecca, who is going to go against Lorenzo, with Monet in between, who she said flat out she's choosing her family. But what is going to happen when they come face to face. And before, we know from the beginning they was dipping and diving, and he didn't want to meet Lorenzo, but now he's like, nah, we're gonna meet. And he like, that's my boy. And what's gonna happen when that illusion of family? It was really interesting when Zeke showed up right away, the cousin, and Lorenzo had him completely pat down. And it seemed like there was a moment of like, I don't trust you, even though I've been away for 10 years. And Monet says that you're cool. That's that cousin. I don't trust you. And it was really interesting because I thought he would be like, hey, what's up, nephew? He didn't do that at all. So I wonder if he always viewed Zeke as something is not right, something's a little suspicious. Not necessarily like, hey, that's really Monet's child, but kind of something's off about that kid. I don't really trust him from the beginning. So I really liked how they set that up. Going back with the whole influence thing with the other Tate, uh, um, that was really interesting. I like how they put that line in there. You need someone of influence. Ha ha ha. I really appreciate how they did that as well. Also, what I really loved is Braden. What I liked about this episode is, how we watch shows or TVs or whatever, movies, and it always seems to be like if you just sat down and everyone talked, you can work out your problems and your differences instead of things blowing up and you're getting into gunfights and it turns into this whole West Side Story situation. Braden and Tariq had their blow up. Tariq blamed him for being, what was it, stupidly dumb. Forgot the exact wording, but he was like, he was just stupid. And they had this talk and they had this conversation and they were able to work it out and they came clean with each other. And I thought we was going to have this huge big battle thing where Braden is going to be used, and it wasn't that. And I like the fact that they had them talk like mature adults. They sat down, they worked out their differences, and now we have a whole nother team where it's Effie and Tariq and Braden. They're going to do their own thing in order to get back at Monet and Kane and the rest of the Tejada family. So I really appreciate how they set that up. That was really good. Another thing that was really interesting, going back a little bit with Tate, and this goes into the other TV show that we're going to get into, how the power of influence. Yes, it's also about money, but it's also about who you know, and how he was able to influence that judge and to get Tate back on the streets. He paid $1 million in bond. He had that ankle bracelet, which he tried to take off, but it didn't work. So I really liked how it really shows, and it bleeds into the other shows, and it gives you little kind of speckles of what we can hope and expect to come to in the future. And as just from a writer's standpoint, I love how they're able to connect things. I know we talked a lot about season 1 was just a little janky. Season 2, I feel, is very strong, and you can see the ripple effects of what's going to happen in the future, not just with this show, but with other shows as well. So I really appreciated that. Also, Carrie, it is time for Carrie. I think this is number 3 of my topics. It's time for Carrie to go, and Lauren is going to be the one to take this woman out, and I'm excited because I'm sick and tired of Carrie. Carrie serves no more purpose. Once Reynolds died, time to go. She is upset about how she feels that she is been used by Carrie. Carrie has a blind motive. Without any kind of evidence, she will blindly just go about and just attack and will not give up. And I really liked how Lauren is figuring things out with Carrie. And I thought at that there was a moment when they was in that office together and she found out, hey, you're sleeping with Zeke and I'm going to tell everybody situation. That's usually where I was expecting maybe Carrie is going to like try to plot and knock on the head or do something, but she didn't. And I'm not a person who likes when people tell the whole master plan at, right at the forefront. But what they did do is show that Lauren is not going to be someone who's going to back down from this situation. Lauren is going to completely go after her. I like the fact that Tariq dumped her because now she lost everything, and she's becoming more desperate, and she's going to try to get back at Carrie, and in order to and also try to get Tariq back. Now it can go one or either ways. We have the whole situation with the drugs, and we don't know whether or not she is going to overdose, and that could be a situation where she's in trouble or she gets arrested for drugs. But that's one way that can go down with her, or she can use this anger and determination to finally get Carrie and take her down. What's really interesting though is Tariq is smart. When he had that jail cell conversation with himself and 50 Cent, who was basically himself, that conversation where he figured out that it was also Lauren, he does not trust her at all. I don't think that is something that can be repaired. Maybe if they sat down and they talked and she explained what really happened, because as we can see, Tariq is mature. He can sit down and talk to people. But I don't know if he had such a strong connection with Lauren for them to talk. With him and Braden, they build things together. Lauren, I don't really know. She kept kind of screaming, open up, open up, open up. And he just finally opened up at the very tail end. And now he ended up in jail. So I don't know if that connection they have is that strong. But I want to know how determined she is going to be in order to get not just him back, but there's some sense of, she has this guilt that she has on her shoulders. How is she going to unburden herself? Is it going to be by righting her wrongs and going to, remember, she went to the lawyer that was Sack's undercover lover. She went to the lawyer and explained everything, and she kind of turned her away. So it makes a big question of what is she willing to do, or how is this going to work. So I really like how they're setting that up, and I believe that is kind of my top 3 situation. So yeah, the whole family dynamic is going to change. I don't know what's going to go on with Lauren, and the lesson of the day, and also with Tate. He got the family photo now, so we're going to see what happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So excellent takeaways. I like your perspective on, the infighting within the family, with the Tejadas and everything. So, going into my takeaways, like one thing that I really liked about this episode is how well it set up all of the future conflict. Like, because you have Tariq versus Kane, which is something they seem to be building up to. It seems like it's going to be like one of those ultimate boss fights or something, and then there's also the Mecca versus Lorenzo. They're going to have to come face to face eventually. But then there's also these little conflicts, within the Tejada family, and it's like it comes in pairs. So like you have the Monet and Diana, dynamic. Those two were kind of beefing in this episode, and Monet put hands on Diana. And I think if Lorenzo catches wind of this, he won't be very happy about that. And that's going to play into the conflict between him and Monet, And then you also have now the conflict between Lorenzo and his son Kane, because Kane, he sees himself as the one in the position of power. He has to connect, and he's not ready to give that up yet, because that once he gives that up, that kind of takes away his power, in the family. And then you have the whole, now they're setting up, it seems, Drew and Kane, because Lorenzo is grooming Drew to be the head of the family, and that plays into the whole Godfather thing we were talking about, where first it was Kane, which you could say, that's Sonny, from the Godfather. But then, the dad has a change of heart, and he thinks, instead of Sonny, I think it's Michael. In this case, it's Drew. I think he's the one that has to take over, because he's more calm and more measured. He'll think clearer than Kane. But the problem is that Drew's heart might not be into it as much. And we know he has more of softer side, but not because of his relationship, but because just because he's not like Kane. We saw that in the first season, where there was a conflict with the GTG people, and Drew kind of froze in that moment, and Kane had to kind of come in and like handle the situation. So Drew isn't, he's not with the violence and all that stuff as much. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see play out. So yeah, there's all of this conflict that this episode was setting up, and it was moving so fast as well. I feel like the story, like in the last 2 or 3 episodes, like the story is just like, it's gone haywire. Like it's so much has happened. Like it's just moving so fast. It's like a whole year's worth of events in like 3 episodes or something. But yeah, the whole setup of the conflict gets me excited for what's to come in the latter half of the season, and then also the next season, season 3. So that was interesting to see play out, all of those different conflicts and the different dynamics. And you also had the Davis McLean and Sax conflict like building up too, because Sax, he's still kind of thinking like a cop a little bit because he's grilling Tariq. And Davis McLean, he's all about the money. He doesn't want to mess up the money, and he has his other agendas as well, like getting his brother out and stuff. So he doesn't want to mess up the situation he has. And he has 2 people in his pockets. He has Tariq and Monet, and he doesn't want to jeopardize that money that's coming in. But Sax, he can't get out of the mind frame of thinking like an investigator. And Dana, did you have something to chime in there on that? Because I saw you were, I didn't know if you wanted to talk or something.
That was my Holy Ghost. Yes, you are right. Waving of the finger. Absolutely. Okay. But in a weird way, in a really weird way, it showed McLean. Yes, we can say he's wants the money and he is all about the money, 1,000%. But he also talked about how he didn't want to know what really went down with his client, because it would shift how he would feel about the client. So maybe in like a 0.000%, there was like a little sense of humanity there.
Yeah.
Or you could just say it was just a really great strategy by not knowing. But like for like a little 0.0, I kind of felt that he cared about Tariq.
Yeah. I think like a little part of him does care, because even when he was talking to Monet, he still kind of wanted to protect Tariq a little, because like it's a direct conflict of interest. Him, that arrangement he has with Monet, it's a complete direct conflict, of interest. But he still wanted to look out for Tariq in that moment, even though he knew it was a sleazy move. So I think a little part of him cares for Tariq a little bit, but his own needs, his own greed kind of outweighs it a little bit. So
because also remember the dynamic with Sax and McLean doesn't want Tariq to talk to Tasha because he would lose out the money. So I'm like, is it because he won't be able to pay you, or because you actually want Tariq to make it in life?
Right. Yeah. So I'm interested to see where that's going, because previously McLean and Sax, they've been kind of cool working together, but now it seems like there's some cracks starting to appear. And we saw how it was the person that Sax is sleeping with, the DA. She was the the one that was against them in the courtroom. So there's that whole dynamic, because he knows they're sleeping with each other also. So he probably thinks Sax is he's somewhat, he could be a liability to him if he somehow gives that person the wrong information, that could be detrimental to Tariq. So yeah, that's interesting how they're playing into that as well. But that's just one of my takeaways. So second one is I like how in this episode we saw Tariq kind of going from being in a vulnerable place to then at the end of the episode, he's very much in a position of power. And yeah, that kind of, it played out really quickly, the whole him getting out of prison and everything. And of course, we know that's because of, the influence of, Rashad Tate. So yeah, I liked that transition throughout the episode of him, going from being locked up to, by the end of the episode, he's calling shots, and he has a super loyal team. It seems like, he went through that thing with Braden, of course, because, Braden did kind of breach his trust a little bit. He lied to him about Kane being in the room. But they both kind of lied to each other a little bit, but they came clean, and now it seems like their friendship is stronger than ever. So I think there's a lot more trust, a lot more solid foundation there between those two. And then Effie kind of, she showed that she is loyal to Tariq. So I guess when she was talking to Diana previously and telling her not to date Tariq, I guess maybe it was because, she kind of still felt a way for Tariq. So yeah, she came back and she showed her loyalty and everything to Tariq. And now, it seems like she's ride or die for him. And we saw that, he even sent her to go meet Monet and everything, because he's on the ankle monitor. So yeah, like Tariq's transition in this episode was great. And what I liked, I know Richard brought this up as well. They brought up the letter again from Ghost, and the way he burned the letter at the end, it's like a sign that he's burning away his ties to Ghost's legacy. He's starting fresh. He's creating his own legacy now. So that's where it seemed like in this episode, and that makes it more exciting to see where this whole Tariq versus Kane thing is going to go, because that seems like, what the major conflict of this series now is going to be. It seems like it's going to be those two. And I do have a question about that, later on. But, and one of my takeaways was going to be about, how Lorenzo is grooming Drew to take over, but I kind of brought that up already. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So we can get to our questions segment, because after those takeaways, we're gonna have a lot to say. But what's up, Dana?
I just wanted to shout out to the judge for realizing that Black lives do matter.
Oh yeah,
and he is an ally.
He's an ally with a big wad of cash from Tate.
Yep.
Yeah, he's an ally. Exactly. What was you gonna say?
Money.
You was gonna say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what it is. When money talks, he is an ally. Yeah.
That whole speech was like, woof. It stops today. He ended racism on that day.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that, but yeah, it was a big change of heart. So that's good. But yeah, so before we get into our questions and discussions and everything, I just want to remind people again, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is a free show. We do this. We take the time out to do this show and everything like that. So if you really like the show, please support it. And we love to see all the comments. We love to hear all the thoughts from the people and everything, and we love to chop it up with all of you about Power, and all the different TV shows and everything. And also take some time to check out some other content on the channel. Some of that stuff we're going to talk about later because it relates to Power. So yeah, just a friendly reminder there. But yeah, so questions. So the first one I have, the Tejadas were a big part of this episode. Lorenzo getting out. I hope Rich is okay over there. But yeah, so the Tejadas, they were a big part of the episode. And after Kane told his father that he is the plug and everything has to go through him, and that he's not introducing him to, the plug at this very moment. It seems like, Lorenzo, I guess he understood that Kane wanted to keep his position, and he kind of, brushed it off a little bit in that moment, but we know he still wants to meet the plug and everything like that. And Mecca originally said that, he told Kane, I don't need to ever see your father. I just want to deal with you. But then, we saw firstly, Monet had a change of heart and she came to him and she said, we can't do this anymore. I got to look out for my family. It will be better if we never see each other again. And you can't meet Zeke right now. So once Monet said that, Mecca had a change of heart himself. And then he sent Kane that text message and said, I'm willing to meet your father now, set up the meeting. And we saw Kane, he read the text message. His father was behind him, So the question is, do you think Kane is actually going to set this up at this point? Or is he going to hesitate, about that? Because he's feeling himself a little bit. He's in a position of power because he's the one that the plug is going through right now. So do you think he's going to like maybe hold back and not set up that meeting? Or how do you think he's going to handle that, in the next episode? So I guess we'll go with you first, Dana. What do you think of that?
Well, the whole thing really depends on how much Kane is trying to prove to Lorenzo. Remember, he's trying to be the number one and prove that he's more worthy than Drew. And one of the things that was the common thread throughout the show was Lorenzo saying, "Well, then give me the connect. If I asked you for something, give it over." So I think that he is going to be more willing to not trust, but to give him that connect in order to kind of gain trust from Lorenzo, or at least attempt to. Lorenzo seems pretty dead set on having Drew be number one, but I feel we're going to see Kane try to do more for his father when he demands and requests things. What's going to be really interesting is how Mecca is going to use Kane against Lorenzo, I feel, maybe, in order to get back at Monet. But at this moment, I do feel that he is going to step up more, and instead of being argumentative with Lorenzo, is going to probably do more things for him in hopes that he will get Lorenzo on his side. But I think that his bigger thing is going to be with Drew, because no matter what, Lorenzo is dead set on Drew being number one, and that's where the real drama will come into.
Okay, so
Because
you
remember,
think,
Lorenzo kept saying, "You're lucky you're my son." I think he would have killed him by now.
yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
I wonder how that dynamic is going to come to play, and how he's going to cross his father, and how willing Lorenzo is going to be to keep that line straight between, this is my son, but this is also kind of my business partner. It's a lot of shades of gray with this, because in order for Lorenzo to be head of the family again, he's going to have to put everyone in their place, and that may end up crossing Kane over. Maybe it ends up being violent. So that's what I'm wondering.
There's a strong possibility of some violence, I'd say. But yeah, what about you, Richard? What do you think of the whole Kane setting up the meeting? Is he going to do it, or is he going to be a bit hesitant to do that after receiving that message?
I think Kane 100% is going to do it, because Mecca is the one that told him, I changed my mind, set up the meeting with Lorenzo. I believe he is more loyal to Mecca right now than Lorenzo because of their working relationship, and because he feels as though that he is trying to align himself with Mecca, and they both think the same. Because you recall when he had the conversation with Mecca and he told him that he was trying to keep the connect for himself, Mecca was proud to hear that. So I guess you could say Mecca is sort of like a father figure in a sense to Kane, in the sense of someone that he actually enjoys working with. He cares about what he thinks as opposed to what Lorenzo thinks. Because this episode told us that Lorenzo is looking at Drew as the next one to take over, which I also will add, I find a very interesting dynamic. Because if you recall, earlier this season, Kane is the one that was teaching Drew how to shoot a gun. So the whole dynamic of the brother going against brother, I find it to be very interesting because there's going to be some drama with that as well, because you know that Kane still feels a certain type of way about it, basically the mantle being handed over to Drew instead of himself. So we'll see how that goes down. But to answer your question, Gary, I 100% think that he is going to listen to what Mecca had to say. And then at that point, it's going to be about the shock and surprise that Monet has when it is finally revealed, oh, Mecca is the contact. Oh, is the connect rather. That's what it's all about right now. But yeah, I think Kane is definitely going to listen to Mecca and do what he says.
Oh yeah. You said something real interesting right there that relates to the next question. Monet, Monet. But let me just add my 2 cents, and then we'll get right into that. So I do think for story purposes, I think Kane will give up. He will set up the meeting. I'm just wondering if because they could stall the whole. They could try and build up some hype around the whole Mecca and Lorenzo thing. They could delay it for a week just by having Drew be the one to meet him first. Like they could like Dana was saying, Lorenzo might be like, what, Drew, you need to step up. I'm gonna have you do the meeting, with the connect, and then everything is gonna run through you, and then maybe Lorenzo doesn't meet him till the next week or something. But that would be too much of a stall out, I think. So I think next week we might actually see that face off happen between Lorenzo and Mecca. So I think Kane will do it, and like you said, Richard, Mecca is the one. He's in the true position of power because everything is coming from him anyway. So if Kane decides not to set up the meet, Mecca could just turn up. He could just like approach Lorenzo or something. Like he has the position of power. Like he can choose how this goes. So yeah, I think we'll probably see that next week. And so going right into the next thing, the true question there is whether Monet, will be a part of this, because at some point she's going to find out, that the plug is Ladante, like the same person that she is in love with, that she was having, this fling, this, the situation with, the situationship. He is one and the same. Mecca and Ladante are one and the same. So do you see this happening, around the same time that Lorenzo meets Mecca, Monet finding out that Mecca is the plug? Like, do you think it's all going to be connected and she's going to find out at that moment? What do you think, Rich?
That's a very good question. And I think that that's something that might be stalled if they were to delay it. But it's a brief delay. The thing is that he made it very clear he wants to meet Lorenzo. We know Lorenzo is now saying that he's fully in charge now, and Monet doesn't have to do anything. So I kind of feel like because of that, I really don't think she's going to be the one that she's going to be able to get this information, at least not in the next episode. I could be wrong, because I feel like the other thing here with Mecca is that he also told her he was going to go ahead and introduce himself to Zeke, because he was not going to wait for her to do that anymore. So she is going to be preoccupied with that situation also. And that may prevent her from finding out, at least right away, that he is the connect. But it depends how they want to play it out. But for now, I think it's going to be a situation where it's going to be Lorenzo who finally gets to meet him. And that, again, makes it all the more dramatic that the two men that supposedly love Monet are working together, and yet they don't know about how how each other one is actually involved in the relationship with Monet. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, that wasn't explained correctly. I'll just say this. Mecca knows that Lorenzo is the husband. He's involved. Lorenzo does not know that Mecca is messing around with Monet. and it has a past with her. So he'll be the one that'll be surprised. But I don't think Monet is going to find out yet that fast. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would like for it to play out how you explained it just there. Like, I would like them to stall Monet finding out a little bit so that we get that whole dynamic of Lorenzo and Mecca, kind of working together and just seeing how their business, works together, like how they conduct business together, without knowing anything. I would like to see that dynamic for a little bit before the whole explosion happens, because there's a lot of secrets here, Monet doesn't know that Mecca and Ladante are the same person, and Lorenzo doesn't know that she was sleeping with him and had a whole child with him. So yeah, there's a lot of secrets to come out there. So I want them to kind of play with that a little bit before we get the final kind of reveal and everything. So,
and one last thing I do want to add too is that the other wrinkle in this plan is that in this episode, we had a very controversial conversation between Diana and Monet. So Diana knows that Monet is hiding something. So she may find out at some point that Mecca is the person that she's been talking to, and then that brings it full circle. And then she has to deal with that also. But Monet is definitely going to find out. It's just a matter of how soon she's going to find out. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
There you go. Richard's got the writer brain too. He's got it down. But yeah, Dana, what do you think about that? Like, how soon do you think Monet is going to find out that Mecca and Ladante are the same? And we'll throw in as well how long until they find out that Monet was sleeping with Mecca as well.
Here's the thing, and this goes back when I said about Lorenzo's personality. He's not a talker. He doesn't wear his emotions out on his sleeve, and neither is Diana in that sense. Diana is the investigator of the family. And she's the one who's in the back, really quiet, and she's observant and she sees everything that's going on. And she was the one to figure out, the whole thing with mom doesn't want dad to come out. Why is that? And she fed this information, and she said it very calmly to Lorenzo. I don't think Lorenzo is a person who's going to really be like, nah, you're joking. I think that that's maybe something that he says, but in the back of his mind, his wheels are turning. And coupled that with the fact that Drew told him about the 10-year plan that didn't involve Lorenzo, to cut him out in order for them to just go up and leave to wherever. And I'm going to assume maybe never contact Lorenzo again in that sense. I think that he is suspicious to begin with, and so is Diana. And him and Diana both together, they're a team. And this is when I think they might end up finding out together, or feed information. She's going to keep feeding information to him. He doesn't look like he's going to be the one who's going to feed it to his children, because that just doesn't seem like there's a certain boundary that he doesn't seem to really cross with his kid, especially when it comes to family that, parts of the family that may be, secret, or you try to protect your children from as much as you can. You can tell them about the drug life, but not about the fact that mama may have an affair. Sorry. So I find that to be really interesting there. I think that Lorenzo is going to know, but when he finds out, it's not going to be that, oh my God. He's going to play really close to the vest. He's going to be like, really proper. Hey, hello, how are you doing? And they're going to end up being friends. I feel, in a way, that they're going to end up working together. They know what they know separately, but they're not going to tell each other what they know. Monet is the one who's going to later on walk in. Like, how you like when she walked in the house and she saw that Lorenzo was free and everyone's there partying. That's what it's going to be like when she comes home and sees, like, oh, it's Lorenzo and Dante. Just like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, what's up? Here, they're counting money together. That's what it's going to be. And I think she's going to have that same expression that she had at the beginning of this episode. You look at this episode. The entire episode, Mary J. Blige was just disgusted the whole way through. From the beginning to the end, she's in the bed, even with the fact that she didn't get any blueberry pancakes. So they're already cutting her out, and she's already feeling this sense of abandonment. So she's gonna feel extra angry now when they end up becoming fake buddy friends. I think that I hope that they don't figure it out right along. I don't want it to be like, and the next episode we're the best friends. I want it to be maybe like 2 episodes later, just to kind of plot things out and to plan things. What was really interesting you had with Mecca watching his son Zeke play basketball outside. He's like, screw everyone else. I'm gonna go and I'm determined to do what I'm gonna do right away. And I feel that I don't know. My thing is, I don't know who's tricking who at this point. I don't know if it's Mecca tricking Lorenzo or Lorenzo going to be tricking Mecca. They're both very smart people, so that's what I'm more interested in knowing is who's going to fool who. But either way, Monet is going to be the one with the face the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, great points there. It's going to be like, it's going to be a lot of drama, and it's very entertaining. I can't even lie to you. Like usually, all of this drama, with families and stuff on TV, it can get played out very quickly. But the way they've set this up, I'm really excited to see, how all of this is going to play out, because it seems like they're leading up to like a big disaster with this family. So I can't wait to see the whole thing play
But
out.
the more important question is, what is Kane going to do? Because Kane is
Hmm.
the one who truly doesn't know anything. And Kane is
Yeah,
a hothead. So who is he going to take his anger out on is the real question. That's what
right.
I'm wondering.
Yeah. So I'm glad you
Because
brought that up, because
this could
go ahead.
actually push him to go with Lorenzo. Because if you look at this, you say my mama lying to me. This man who always knew he's lying to me. The only one who I can probably trust is my daddy. So then
Right.
that's because once you have Kane, I think that's where you have more of the power. Because Kane is the crazy one, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you think about it, Kane really is, he's like the dark horse of like every situation, and like every storyline, every story thread in this show, he's like the dark horse behind it all. He's the dark horse behind Tariq's situation, the Tejadas, so a lot of weight is on Kane and how he'll react to certain things. And that brings me to the next question, because depending how this plays out, it could affect the other situations. So we know that Tariq, he hasn't been acquitted or anything. This case is still looming over his head. He's out now, but the case is still going to come back. It's still open. They're still investigating. They're still getting all their facts together and such. So it's not over with yet, right? So we know that Kane is the one who set him up. Tariq knows this. And in this episode, he was having a conversation with Effie, and even he said, "I know what I gotta do. At some point, I gotta get rid of Kane. Because he's the one that he holds this whole thing over my head. Like, he knows that I killed Jabari, and everything. So I can't go on without him, living, because he's dangerous. So we know that is one of the biggest issues for Tariq right now, right? So do you think that the way this season ends, do you think Tariq is going to try and kill Kane, or will he find a way to pin his case on Kane, and then Kane will maybe end up in prison for a while, and then that will put him out the way of the Tejada situation as well. So it could maybe, like, depending how the Tejada thing plays out, it could kind of solve two problems depending on what happens there. And maybe someone from the Tejada family will even assist Tariq in doing that. Or will they just straight up kill him? So I want to ask you guys how you see Tariq kind of getting rid of this problem with Kane in this season. So I guess I'll go to you first, Dana. What'd you think of that?
I think that it's way more dangerous to kill Kane because one of the things that Monique did say in the car was how much she will slaughter anyone who touches her son. And I genuinely believe that. You don't want some kind of war on your hands. And if you really look at it, Tariq is kind of on his own in that sense. I do think that it's more, I don't want to say profitable, but more better if Kane does take the fall. Well, not take the fall, but is set up just like he set up Tariq. It's very ironic and a very lovely coming back karma situation. So I would like it if that's the case more. And then it further angers and pushes that isolation that Monet is feeling. Because remember, it's just her and her son that are teaming up. She really doesn't have anyone in her corner. Her daughter can't stand her. Lorenzo's kind of looking at her a little cross-eyed and saying retire, but she doesn't want to. Lorenzo's not stupid. I think Lorenzo knows something's up even before he was told the plan. I feel that Lorenzo always knew something was a little off with Monet, and it could, maybe you could say, oh, maybe it's another man or some other, she's no longer in love with me anymore. But he knows something's up, and I do feel that Drew gave her like that kind of sense of purpose and something to do. And so I really feel that if Drew is taken out of the picture, it would hurt Mary or Monet's character more psychologically, and we could really feel that sense of loss and abandonment. She, like I said, she was miserable this whole episode, so I think that that would be more impactful as opposed to just killing someone. Because no matter what, then yeah, that means you also has Lorenzo's after you. Because Lorenzo, like, he's a family man, and that is his son, point blank, period. He said, you're really lucky you're my son. I love you no matter what. And so I feel that that would be way more dangerous to kill him. So I would like for him to go to jail. Set him up.
Oh yeah, yeah. For story purposes, definitely, send him to jail because then you get to build up more future storylines. Like that becomes this whole hype of Kane maybe one day getting out. And then it kind of has like a parallel to Kanan as well, because we know he spent some time locked away, and then that anticipation was there of him finally getting out and stuff, and causing chaos or whatever. So yeah, I think story wise it would be good to send him away, but I do think we're owed a big death at some point. So it will be interesting to see how they play it out. But Rich, I don't know if are you good to talk about what you think right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you think that might play out?
Well, to start off, what you just said about we're owed a big death, I know that we can all agree that we do not like the Cooper Sachs character, but one thing he said in this episode is correct, is that, when they let Tariq go, there's probably going to be someone else that ends up dead. And I think he was 100% correct about that. I have no idea who it's going to be as of now, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But to answer your question, I really do like Woody McClain as Kane. He's doing an excellent job as the character. I kind of feel like he's a very relentless character. So I part of me does not want them to rush that confrontation with Tariq so easily. I mean, because it feels like once it happens, as Dana alluded to, then it is an all-out war. And I kind of want to see this play out for a little bit longer. We know that they have all these other dynamics that they are also throwing into the storyline as well. Like I recall last week, Gary, or rather the last Powercast we did, you made mention to the fact of, we had that whole scene where when Kane stopped by the dorm, he had a brief interaction with Lauren. Well, now that we know that Lauren is officially done with Tariq because Tariq threw her to the side, it's not out of the realm of possibility that something could happen between Kane and Lauren in the future, because it's just like there are a lot of dynamics that's going on between these two characters. And of course, as we saw in this episode, Tariq is playing it safe and smart not to try to do anything because he has the police monitoring him with the ankle bracelet, so he can't do anything reckless. He set up Kane to get taken out by somebody else? Absolutely. But I feel like as a Power fan, you want to see this confrontation between these two characters. I just don't think it's going to happen that quick. I could be wrong. Like maybe that's what happens at the end of the season, and then all of next season it throws into everything into a disarray, and then Tariq finds himself up against the entire family. That could happen. But one thing I will say is one other thing that I did find interesting is again the same episode, the last episode of Power, when Tariq showed up at Mecca's place and got beat down, and then of course, we had that whole back and forth where once again Kane lied to Mecca. I feel like at some point Mecca's going to find out the truth about that, and that puts a bit of distrust in their relationship as well. So it may not be a situation where we get a chance to see Kane and Tariq because Mecca might actually have to take Kane out at some point instead. But I think again, I do think though they know that they've been building up this tension between these two characters, Tariq and Kane, and I feel like as a fan, I want to see that play out with those two going toe to toe. But I just don't think it's going to happen that quick. But again, a lot of things do happen fast in this show, so it would make for an exciting season finale for this particular season. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I kind of think it's going to be hard for Tariq to really get physical and do anything because he is being monitored now. So
yeah,
we'll see how it plays out, though.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Kane, if anything, Kane should maybe take the rap for the murders and sit down for a little bit because we know Power has creative ways to get people out of prison. They got Lorenzo out and everything, so they could get him out at any time, and that builds anticipation. But just for fun, the way I would see Tariq trying to take out Kane, if he wanted him dead or whatever. So he knows that, Braden and Kane were doing things like they were doing robberies and things, and they have a friendship now. They've been like doing things together, right? Yep. So and we know now that Tariq told Braden that he killed, Jabari. He confessed everything. So I could foresee, maybe there's a there's a scene where Tariq kind of grooms Braden and like maybe Braden's curious about how it feels to kill someone or how he does it, and then Tariq will tell him his state of mind when he did it, and then he kind of tries to manipulate Braden into possibly taking out Kane on one of their robberies or something like that, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no,
both of you were going to say something, it seems.
Yeah, go ahead, I'll make a quick comment and then you can go to Dana. I just was going to say that is a possibility, but I want to make this comment since you brought up Braden and Tariq. As I mentioned earlier, they had a reconciliation in this episode, but the one important detail is that Tariq told him everything except for the fact of about the fact that he needs that book. He needs access. Yeah. He needs access to those photos, but he didn't tell him why. He said, "Oh, it's part of my case." He does not know that that's going to lead to Sweeney going down. So that right there is something. Again, Tariq is still in control of that situation, and I'm curious to see how Braden will feel once Sweeney is impacted by that. How that's going to make their whole dynamic. I mean, is he still going to remain loyal to Tariq, or is he going to try and maybe slip up and do something against Tariq? I don't know, but that's a whole nother thing that I find it interesting how Tariq was very careful and calculated with that conversation where he said everything to Braden, but he did not tell him that information about Sweeney. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. And Dana, what was you going to say?
That's what I was going to bring up because it's like what he's doing he's looking for a controversy.
Controversy.
Yep. Had the shot, a little loopy right now, but he had the whole. Jesus is a biscuit. What I'm trying to say is the reason why Tate wanted the book is because he wanted to bring Sweeney down in some big whirlwind of controversy. When he gets a hold of those pictures are going to the press, just like we've seen with Anthony Weiner and everything else. They immediately go to the press and the Twitter and everything else. That means they will easily be connected to that book and Braden. So I'm wondering, what was the end goal by not telling him the real reason why he needed that book, because he's going to get it's going to fall back on Braden, because in the family or whomever, it's going to look like, where did you get that weird, the photo came from the family photo album. What's going on, Braden, or anyone else in the family? It's going to be like, well, how did the photos get out? And Braden himself is going to know exactly how those photos got out. Now, the real question is whether or not Braden will care, because he did have this whole speech to Monet where he said, "This is finally something that I'm able to do without my family knowing, without me relying on my family." So, and we also saw from the very beginning that he was still kind of disgusted about his family. Remember when we saw the big fancy car, and and everything else? He was like, "Oh, I'm so sick of this." That's the moment of truth for their friendship, or whether or not Braden does not care at all what happens to his uncle, or does not care at all, by tarnishing the name and knowing that he was the one who got the pictures to give to Tariq. Or is he going to be completely angry about this whole situation and Tariq not explaining things to him? So that is what I just wanted to bring up, because I don't know what is going to go on.
Yeah, you both make a great point, that because although it seemed like, they put everything on the table and told each other, their secrets or whatever, yeah, that is still something that he didn't tell Braden about, and that, it's gonna be interesting to see how that affects Braden when all of that comes out, with the Sweeney thing. So yeah, it seems like there's some more potential conflict that can come between those two. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, a lot of interesting ways they could go about telling these stories. So yeah, the next few episodes definitely going to be crazy. But I do have one more question here just for fun. So I wanted to ask you guys. We see the dynamic now between Braden, Tariq, and Effie. So, I wanted to ask you guys, if you in any way see any parallels here, with before, because we know of the history of Jamie St. Patrick, Tommy, and Tasha. We know that they have this long history together that goes all the way back to their college days. So do you see that as like a parallel now with the younger generation, being Tariq, Effie, and Braden? So go ahead, Dana. What's your thoughts on that?
I never thought of that until you brought it up
Mm.
at all. So that's going to be a really interesting dynamic.
Do you
But
think it's intentional or at all, or just like
well, now
just
that you mention it, yeah, it could be intentional. I just never really thought of that. So
mm,
like, yeah, it makes complete sense. And then you could see, not Diana, sorry, Effie is really smart in both the
mm,
streets and in the books, and she knows how to navigate both worlds really well. So I never really thought of that. She seems a bit smarter than Tasha. So yeah, and then Braden's a little hot. Yeah, now that you say it, I completely see it. I never thought of it that way. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of that is intentional.
it's
I do
probably.
know that Courtney Kemp, she does like to play around with things like that. Like she does like to, have little Easter eggs and
Hmm.
references and things like that. Even going back to the Godfather thing we talked about, she mentioned that that was, intentional. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing I noticed, how that whole thing worked out. Because with Lauren, it seemed like she didn't really fit the Tasha type. It was like a different kind of archetype, I guess. But if this is what they're going with these three being like, the team, then yeah, it does draw a lot of parallels. But I don't know if that's going to be the standard for the rest of the show. Like there could be some sort of split up, or you know
Hmm.
um and we know that Diana wants to go to the school also. So you don't know how her relationship with Tariq is going to play out in the future either, and if that's going to affect anything. But yeah, for the moment, I definitely kind of got, not flashbacks, but I like when I saw those three together, I kind of got that feeling of wow, this very much reminds me of early Power with Tommy, Tasha, and Ghost.
Hmm.
So yeah. But what about you, Rich? Do you think that's an intentional parallel or anything like that?
Yeah, much like Dana, I didn't think about that until you mentioned it, and instantly when you mentioned it, I thought about when they had at the end of season 6 that whole monologue back in the day where you saw Ghost, Tommy, and Angela as teenagers. Uh, I know that we're possibly not going to get any more backstory on Ghost, and that's fine. That's fine. They're not going to. I mean, maybe you'll see him show up in Raising Kanan at some point, but yeah, it makes sense that that's what they were going for with this dynamic. One quick point that I do want to add, though, about Effie's involvement. We also know that Effie has been working closely with Diana, and I'm very curious to see how that situation is going to play out now that she's also working with Monet, because Monet may not know that Effie already knows her daughter and has been doing stuff with her. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to impact either relationship moving forward. Once Diana finds out, she may feel a certain type of way about that whole situation. I don't really know how that's going to go, but again, that's what one of the strengths is with the writing, because it can go in so many different directions. So I look forward to seeing how they're going to explain that story moving forward.
There you go, right there. There's something I didn't think about,
Yeah.
because there is that whole dynamic too of Effie. She kind of she was kind of close with Diana for a little bit, so I'm sure she knows a bit about her and her family and what she's been dealing with. So yeah, that could definitely come into play. And they're teasing this whole thing of Diana possibly getting into the same school. So I'm wondering how that will impact the trio as well, particularly with Effie being part of the mix now. So, yeah, uh, very interesting stuff. But yeah, that's all the questions I had. But is there anything else at all that you two wanted to bring up? Before we get to what Dana has to talk about, with the content and everything. But is there, aside from that, is there anything else about the episode you want to bring up?
I was
No.
thinking. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the episode was, once again, I think it was a very good episode. It set up a lot of things. The whole family dynamic, I thought that was very well done, and it makes you curious. As Dana, she said it better. I think she said it best earlier in the show, where she mentioned how they're splitting up the family into teams. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with that. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of bad things that do happen, but it's just curious to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I thought it was a great episode. I'm glad to see that Tariq is free. Obviously, he's going to be a little bit more cold hearted like his father now. So I look forward to seeing him go off on more people as well. But yeah, great episode. Looking forward to next week's show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, Dana, you had something?
Yeah. One oh there we go. Okay, so one of the things, it was stupidly disloyal, is what Braden was.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Stupidly
stupidly, I
disloyal.
thought that
Yeah.
was just a great way to describe Braden, just in general. He's a good friend. He means well. He's a little stupid though. Um, but
Yeah.
that was really interesting, and also the part about the whole course correct, and how who's going to be running course correct now. We have to wait and
Mm.
see how that whole dynamic is, because now Monet knows what's really going on, and Lorenzo knows, and everyone seems to know, and they're like, "Oh, it's a stupid idea," but I think if you don't sleep on that course correct, because it's been pretty good to them, and so
Mm.
it's interesting to see if that will end up coming into play, and whether or not people who will find out more about course correct, and that's the determining factor to get everyone down at this member at the school, to bring the school down. Also, is that also another
Yeah.
thing that we have to look out for as well. And also the fact that Tariq has that ankle bracelet on. So I wonder, he kept saying the cops are really looking at you. So I wonder how is this is going to affect his movement. I know he has Effie and Braden, but just overall in general, when you realize something can't get done correctly unless you're actually involved in it, I wonder if that will kind of impact Tariq and what he can and cannot get involved with until that ankle bracelet is removed. Because remember, Effie couldn't take that off, which was really interesting. Because if you tamper with the ankle bracelet, it was supposed to go off to let the people know that you're tampering with the ankle bracelet, but that didn't happen. Another thing, really quickly, was the fact that I'm just really interested in seeing Braden is now the one who's going to be setting up Kane, and remember he knows everything, and what is the information he's trying to get on Kane, and how that will work. Will he still pretend to be like that stupidly disloyal friend, you know, play the innocent, I don't know anything that's going on card, but really feeding that information back at Tariq. So that's another thing, and then also we have Effie working with Monet, even though
Mm.
everyone can't stand each other. So that's also really interesting dynamic that I can't wait to see how they touch upon. And that this kind of seems to be like everything. We just have to wait and see. Will Zeke? Maybe Zeke will befriend Dante, and not know what's really going on. Zeke right there is always who's that man in the car always staring at me as I'm playing. So I wonder who will introduce themselves to whom. And that's another thing that's going to be. And will he tell him right away, "Hey, I'm your daddy"? Or like how? My whole thing is, yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, the family." I'm really concerned about how is Zeke going to take all of this, because your aunt is now your mother, and then the random basketball, maybe he could be like a fake basketball recruiter, is actually your dad. What's going on? So
Yeah,
I look
I do
forward to
think Mecca will approach him like super casual, like, "Oh, you like to play ball, huh? I like to play ball too." Like just super casual. I don't think he'll like,
I'm your dad.
tell him right away, but I think he'll kind of like ease him into it, kind of.
Hmm. And also, really quickly, Drew's boyfriend. He's gonna have to cut ties with his boyfriend, but I wonder, is he going to go quietly into that good night? Like, what is really up with that boyfriend? Because he knows things. Remember, Monet is like, "I don't care that you're gay. I don't really care about the relationship. My issue is you got too big of a mouth." So, will he go away, or will he start using that mouth? Maybe Drew is the one who's going to have to kill him. And that will be like the big test that's going down. We have the test that's going on with, what is it, Kano? Remember that whole thing that he set up, where he's going to be the one that's going to tag him and follow him around in order to bring Kano down. But my thing is, what's going to happen with the boyfriend who talks a lot? I don't think he's going to go away that quickly. So that's just another
Yeah.
thing that we have to look out for. And also, what was it? The guy who was taking pictures? No, not the guy who wanted. Was he the guy who wanted to take pictures with Lorenzo? Was it Little Guap? I'm not sure. All these names. There was a lot of things going on in like the first 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's him.
He looked
Little
so
Bob.
familiar to me. Like I felt like I seen him somewhere and I don't know where. But um I wonder, we know that Lorenzo, that was just another sign of Lorenzo being really careful. Like, I'm not posting up on no IG. Why you have your phone on? What's really going on? So I wonder if someone in the crew or something is going to sneak like a little picture or something in order to warn someone else. But it's really interesting that they brought that up. But it's also
What
a
I
little
find
great thing. Hmm?
I was gonna say what I find funny about that is because the same situation happened with Mecca, and Mecca like kind of beat him up or whatever, or roughed him up.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
funny that Kane would even do that.
bro broke his
I think
finger.
because
Broke
But
his
remember,
finger.
that's like a new school thing where you always like flashing your money and your jewelry, and look, here's the dead guy. I just killed him. And you take a photo for the gram, and then you wonder why you're in jail the next day. So it's like it's a generational thing. So it shows how Lorenzo and Mecca, because they're from that same generation, think alike. So I appreciate that. That was another thing. So yeah, I think I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, excellent stuff. So let's get into the content you have coming up. Like let the people know about the interviews that are hitting the channel, this weekend.
So this weekend at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, both Sunday and Saturday, we have a full cast interview with Raising Canaan. So that's book number 3. They're going to talk about everything that went on in the first season, the transformation of their characters. It's a lovely discussion. It's a roundtable situation with the main cast. So we have people from Haley Killjoy, who played Jukebox, and of course we have Kane. We also have Sasha Penn, who is the showrunner and the executive producer. There's also going to be Omar Epps is in it. The Patina Miller is in it. So basically, the whole main cast of Raising Kanan. They're going to talk about the show, what was going down, and then on Sunday we have a lovely little tiny small segment where Sasha Penn, the producer and showrunner, gives all of the details for what is season 2. He spills all the beans. He talks about where they're at in filming, which character is going to go where, how all of the pieces are moving together, and that they have the whole season all mapped out. They believe they're 2/3 into shooting, so they're almost done. They're almost wrapping up. So he's going to just sit down and explain everything that you can expect from the upcoming season. So it's going to be really fun, and we have that.
Cool. So yeah, some more power related content to check out.
And the
after
links will be below for reference. They don't go up until Sunday, but the links are there. It's a premiere.
Yeah. We'll add in the links, but yeah, definitely go to the channel, check that out as well. After you listen to this. So yeah, that's pretty much our show for this week. We will be back again next week to cover episode 7. Of Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2. But yeah, this was a real fun episode. A lot happened. Definitely want to hear from the people, see what you guys got to say in the comments and everything. So be sure to drop those comments and let us know your thoughts and theories. We'll get straight to, final words and shout outs now. So Dana, any shout outs?
Just shout outs to everyone who listens to us. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Cool. And how about you, Richard?
Yeah, I definitely want to thank everybody for commenting, liking the last several episodes. Definitely feel free to let us know your thoughts on this episode. If there's any topics that you are interested in us discussing further in future episodes. And yes, thank you for the continued support. We look forward to coming back to you again next week.
Indeed. I hope you feel better as well, Rich.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And I just want to give a big shout out to, all the supporters, all the people who have reached out, all the people who commented and everything over the holidays. Big shouts to all of you. Shouts to Kwame, Robert Silver, big supporters of the show. Rainy J, Nelly Mac. I saw they came back. They've been long-time listeners. So, just big shouts to all of you guys, and then also to YouTube fan people as well, for being involved in the show. So but that's it. We'll be back next week. So, everyone take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week.